Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto had a quirk. A reluctant hero in training, but even the reluctant can become great, once they find their cause. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 1 One for All. Eat this. No thanks uncle, find a different person to inherit One for All. Naruto Uzumaki spoke as he yawned, passing by his uncle as he grabbed a bowl of cereal. He covered his mouth with one hand, other hand grabbing the cereal and pouring it into a bowl on the table. He sat down and grabbed a spoon, pouring milk into the bowl to complement his breakfast. He was wearing his pajama pants, and nothing else. He was a boy with an average height, seeing as he was 15 years old, standing at 5 feet 6 inches in height. He had unruly blonde hair, spiked in all directions, and bright blue eyes. His skin was a light peach color, and he bore 3 whisker marks on each cheek. His body was lean muscled, but not without a small amount of visible bulk to it. His uncle shared a similar appearance. They both had spiked blonde hair, the same color skin, and similarly colored bright blue eyes. His uncle was a monster of a man though, standing well over 7 feet tall, and his entire body was bulky muscles. He was wearing a tight white shirt, and green pants. He was holding out a golden hair for Naruto, and Naruto waved it off. Just like your father, turning down One for All. How is your morning going? Naruto kicked a chair out towards him. Uncle Toshinori, take a seat and stop sucking your gut. Naruto told his uncle with an irritated look. The man in front of him deflated. His muscles all vanished, leaving him as practically skin and bones, though traces of muscle were visible. His combed back hair became much more spiky, similar to Naruto's own, and his face hollowed out. His clothes were not extremely baggy on him, and he took a seat across from Naruto. Toshinori Yagi. You know, young man, most people would kill to have All Might's quirk. I've raised you since you were this. Toshinori held his hands close together. Big, and can't think of anyone else who I could trust with it more. The man continued as he looked at his nephew in all but blood. Naruto munched. I already have a quirk, and I'll become a hero using my quirk. Anyway, my dad turned down One for All when it was offered to him, there is no way I'm going to take something he turned down. Naruto waved off the generous offer. Toshinori nodded his head, though he seemed slightly disappointed that Naruto turned him down once more. Your quirk dash. Texas smash. Naruto gave his uncle a punch in the stomach, getting his uncle to cough up a large amount of blood almost comically. Naruto gave a smirk and raised his fist up, showing off his impressive strength. I might not be able to use my quirk in tight spaces, but it's not like I'm not strong enough to defend myself. I can thank your training for that, even though you're a shitty teacher. Naruto shook his fist in the memories of how shitty his training had been. For such a great pro hero, his uncle was not suited for teaching people how to fight, or rather he wasn't very good at it yet. Speaking of teaching, I plan on teaching at UA High School next year, in order to find a student worthy of my quirk, provided you don't dash. Not going to change my mind. Naruto heard the insisting tone in his uncle's voice. Anyway, I feel sorry for, oh shit, I'm attending UA next year. Naruto palmed his face when he realized that he was going to be attending that school. He had already been accepted into the school via multiple recommendations. One of which was his uncle, another of them being his late father, and some people he knew through All Might. Naruto sighed. Now he was reluctant to go to UA, but sadly, he was too lazy to take the tests to get into other schools. He had a free pass into UA, and didn't have to take the tests like most other students. Toshinori became serious and turned back into his All Might form. Your father and I might not be brothers by blood, but I was honored that he trusted me to watch over you. As your family, I ask this favor of you. I will one day find successor. I want you to help watch over my successor when I pass One for All on. All Might asked as he bowed his head, touching the table, to his nephew. Naruto scoffed and leaned his head against his hand, snorting at the gesture. His uncle was the greatest hero, but he was not without his humble side, nor was he above lowering his head for a worthy cause. Admirable traits. I was going to anyway. You going to eat, or just sit there? Either way, I'm going for a swim. Naruto stood up and walked towards the front door. As he passed by All Might, now back to being regular Toshinori, he gave his family member a pat on the shoulder. Since you're going out today anyway, why don't you stop by a grocery store and pick up some ramen cups dash? Now Naruto, you know that isn't good for your health. To keep up a healthy body, you need a healthy diet dash. Toshinori stopped and nodded his head. Naruto usually kept to the healthy diet that he, Toshinori, stuck him to. There were a few days a week though that Naruto was allowed to cheat on his nutritional intake. It was easier to stick to a certain diet, when you gave yourself days to not stick to it, and Naruto usually chose those days to eat ramen. He stood up and followed Naruto out, since they were going to be parting ways for the day. Naruto slapped him on the back as they parted ways out of the door. Don't go pushing yourself too hard. When you find the person, you'll know. I'll make you a promise. If you don't find a worthy successor by the time I graduate this hurts me on the inside. Naruto knew that he had to do this for the only person he could call his family. Even if he didn't want to, and he wasn't going to if anyone else showed up willing to take the power, he would do it. I'll inherit one for all. Naruto relented a little. That was still years away, a long time for that. Toshinori smiled and rubbed the top of Naruto's head. You might have your mother's quirk, but you have your father's heart. I'll try my hardest to find a successor. See you. Toshinori and Naruto fist bumped as they left each other. They each had their own trains to catch if they were going to go to the places they were traveling to. Naruto smirked to himself. Despite himself, he was a little happy his uncle was going to be teaching at the school he was going to be attending. Seriously, you're half of the reason I'm even becoming a hero. If I become a hero, I can carry some of that weight you have on your shoulders. Naruto glanced back at Toshinori, before he shook his head and started to walk away a little faster. Toshinori glanced back at Naruto. Minato, he's becoming a fine man. He looks so much like you did when we were his age, but he has his mother's face. Toshinori smiled to himself as he walked with a skip in his step. A new energy to his walk as he found more inspiration to find somebody to succeed him, that way Naruto didn't need to do something he didn't want to. They were the only family each other had. They had to help each other. Chapter 2 Monster Fox. Swimming. When Naruto used the word swim or swimming, water was never something he meant when he said it. Swimming through a sea of enemies, or trying not to drown as he pushed himself head over heels in his training. Naruto stood in the middle of a forest, looking at his phone, waiting for a response from anyone that he had texted. He had a slightly eager look on his face, because today he was going to be training in secret with a pro hero, that wasn't his uncle. I don't see why everyone likes him so much, he's just my dorky uncle. Naruto didn't understand everyone's fascination with the man. They wouldn't be nearly as impressed with All Might if they knew what he was like at home. A dorky, pun-spewing, excited guy with a complete lack of skills when it came to training students. If he was a half-competent teacher, I wouldn't be going behind his back to train with heroes. Naruto always felt bad that his uncle didn't know what he was doing, and that he had to lie to the man. Sure, he was honest with Toshinori about him not being a great teacher, but he had never told the man that he was training with others behind his back. He didn't want to hurt his only family's feelings. Ding. Where are you? Ryukyu. Naruto looked at the text he had gotten, before he looked up at the skies, and around the forest. He had picked a place that was pretty far away from civilization, seeing as it was the best place for him to train his quirk. Naruto unzipped his orange jacket, tossing it to the ground, before he took a deep breath and clapped his hands together. His body transformed. His hair started to change color from blonde to orange, and the hair on his head spread to cover his entire body. His bones changed shape, his legs becoming more like the legs of an animal. His torso remained humanoid though, and he kept humanoid hands, claws forming on them. His head changed shape into that of a fox, with elongated ears with black markings extending to cover around his eyes. He grew in height as well, standing over 20 feet tall as 3 tails grew from his tailbone. Amazingly, his pants stretched to fit him, since they were made out of a material designed to grow to fit those with quirks that increased their sizes. Sadly, his favorite jacket was not made of such materials, so he was always forced to take it off when he transformed. He opened his eyes, showing that they had changed color, pure red with slit pupils, and his whisker marks transferred to his face, becoming darker sections of fur that resembled the whisker marks. Naruto roared loudly in response to the text. Naruto's quirk. Monster Fox. The ability to transform his body into that of the mythical creature, the nine-tailed fox. The quirk that he inherited from his mother, who inherited the quirk from her grandmother. The more tails of his quirk that he used, the larger the transformation became. Originally, the quirk was 9 tails before the quirk combined with the gigantification, when the original 2 quirk users had a child together and they fused. Naruto allowed his bloodlust to infuse into the roar, sending all of the nearby forest animals running out of instinct. Birds flying away from the location, and any creature with a self-preservation instinct making the choice to escape from his sight. Downside of the quirk. It was hard to control the animal instincts of the quirk, considering the fox was still a carnivorous creature. The sounds of wings flapping were heard, and several trees were knocked down when a dragon landed in front of Naruto. Naruto crouched down so that he was standing on all fours, and looked eye to eye with the dragon that landed down. The dragon, visibly female, was roughly the same size as he was now. The two of them were both standing on all fours, looking at each other. She was covered in hard scales, with a more slim body than his muscular body. She had large wings jetting from her back, and on top of her head she had spiked hair. She wore a Chinese dress, designed with a scale pattern, and a scaled headband over her head. The dragon spoke, and the voice didn't quite sound like it belonged to a dragon. I was surprised you sent me a text today. I don't mind helping you train on my days off, but you always pick the strangest locations. Ryukyu spoke as she bowed her head politely in greeting, her long neck curving. She stopped bowing her head, and locked eyes with him again. This wasn't their first meeting. Considering she was great with children, she had actually spent a few of her days off in the past watching Naruto as a favor asked by All Might himself. She didn't know how Naruto and All Might were related, since All Might didn't tell her that information, but she had stopped questioning it. Now that Naruto was 15 though, it had been years since she had babysat him. Now, she only really saw him when he wanted some help training. With your scales, you're the best suited for this, but I don't want to force you to break the law, so training needs to be done away from the city. Naruto's voice on the other hand had changed to fit his larger form. It was deeper, darker, far more demonic sounding as it resounded. Ryukyu nodded. Naruto used the tips of his claws to pick his jacket up off the ground, and he removed a small sparkling object from one of the pockets. He extended the object to Ryukyu and showed it off to be small silver pocket watch. It was his thanks for her helping him, since she did enjoy shiny objects. It wasn't really expensive, being a low purity of silver, but it looked nice. The looks were all that were important, it being a shiny metal object. Thank you. Now Ryukyu watched as Naruto placed his jacket in a tree, putting the watch back into it for safekeeping until they were done. Let's review the basics, and see your mastery over them. Ryukyu raised a clawed hand and motioned for him to attack her. Attack he did. The ground cracked underneath his feet as he rushed after her, their two large bodies colliding violently as they uprooted the nearest trees. Naruto grabbed her by the waist and the shoulder, using his fangs to grab onto her neck just hard enough to hold her, without piercing the scales too deeply. She on the other hand, grabbed onto his right leg and left arm, with her fangs sinking into his shoulder as the two of them became locked into a competition of strength. They were both standing on hind legs, trying to use their footwork to gain the edge over the other. To knock each other off of their balance, with two of Naruto's tails going up and wrapping around her wings. His third tail wrapped around her leg, and her tail was beating against his right side. The fur on his body was thick, serving as a decent defense against blunt and piercing attacks, cushioning blunt attacks, and reducing piercing damage. Grappling. Using his large body to capture enemies without inflicting mortal injuries, judging the right amount of strength to use to counter the enemy. Fighting without killing, and reducing damage to the surrounding area. It was a basic for those with quirks that increased the size of their bodies. Her fangs pierced his shoulder, and she gained the upper hand, tossing him to the ground. "God dash. You." Naruto spoke as he used the hold his tails had on her to throw her to the ground as well. The two of them got to their feet, and charged at each other, slamming their foreheads together. Texas Smash. Naruto slammed his fist into her sternum, attacking the vitals. Bringing down villains as quickly as possible, so attacking the vitals after judging how much punishment the villain could take was a basic. Naruto used all of his strength to punch her right between the boobs, knocking her off of her legs and into the air a little. She flapped her wings, her scales visibly bent out of shape, and flew up into the air. "The power that you smashed me with was impressive. I felt that impact through my entire body." Ryukyu praised the strength of the punch. Her tail ripped a tree from the ground, and she tossed it at him. Naruto didn't look at the tree. He dodged it without taking his eyes off of her, never taking your eyes from the opponent if possible. Dodge attacks through feeling them out, instead of needing your eyes as your biggest cue for dodging. "Barely damaged you. I'm quite durable, you said it yourself. Feel free to smash me with all of your might. I want to see how the control over your power has grown." Ryukyu wasn't the 9th place hero for nothing. She was one of the most popular, most powerful heroes in the world. She had taken her fair share of beatings before, gotten her ass handed to her several times, and grown stronger for it. "Make use of your tails more, you have more ways to attack opponents than just punches," Ryukyu advised him, seeing him not using all of his limbs for attack. Naruto ripped 3 trees from the ground using his tails, and threw them all at her together, smashing them together in midair to shatter them. Naruto transformed. His body shrank in size as 3 tails turned into a single tail, his body being only 7 feet tall now. He jumped up into the air, hiding behind the shattered trees, and grabbed onto her long neck. With a firm hold, Naruto's body started to grow in size as he reached his 3-tailed form again. His tails wrapped around her wings, and the two of them fell out of the sky, slamming into the ground. They were biting and scratching each other, fighting similar to animals as they engaged in extreme close combat. Submission holds, their bites and scratches were just ways for them to try and put the other into places where they could put them into a strong hold. Naruto transformed back into a human form, landing on his feet as he ran on top of her body. She reached up and clawed at him, with him putting his hands on her claws, and using them to jump over the next grabbing claw. He transformed into a 2-tailed version of his quirk and grabbed onto her neck with his entire body. Size. Size wasn't always important, just because the opponent was larger, didn't mean they would always win. Otherwise, those with quirks that made them huge would be unstoppable. Using the smaller size to the advantage was a basic of combat when fighting those larger than oneself. Naruto snapped his jaws on top of her maw, stopping her from opening her mouth again. She reached up and grabbed him, trying to pry him from her body. "Gotcha!" Naruto tried to speak with her mouth in his mouth, but it didn't come out quite right. She grabbed him by the tail and yanked, getting a yelp from him, and she bent her neck to bite him. She threw him to the ground and mounted him, sitting on top of his waist as she bit down on his neck. She transformed back into her normal form, sitting on top of his chest. She was pretty, with short spiked hair that curved downwards, her clothes shrinking to fit her. She had a toned, lean body, with more sharp features, including how all of her teeth were still sharpened, and she had angular, slit pupil eyes. She was fair-skinned, with a similar height to himself. She had a small smile as he transformed back into his more human form as well. "Good, you didn't forget the basics. Now, let's practice your martial arts in these forms." Ryukyu got up, helping him to his feet as she licked her hand and wiped the blood from his neck. She had pierced his skin when she bit his neck, and while the wounds were superficial, it still wouldn't be good to let the blood keep flowing freely. She noted that he was about an inch taller than she was now, wondering if he was about to start another growth spurt soon. She had long since stopped growing, she was a 25-year-old woman, but it was always amazing to see the tiny little kid she babysat grow into a man. Naruto dusted himself off. Then, out of nowhere he threw the first punch at her stomach, which she sidestepped and grabbed onto his forearm. She punched at him with her free hand, and he leaned his head to avoid it, reaching up to grab her wrist. Damn, thought I had you. That was a well-delivered punch. You never know when a fight will start, so it's better to attack the villains before they can act. Ryukyu and Naruto let go of each other's arms, and started to throw and block punches. They carefully and quickly moved their arms to toss aside each other's attacks, used their palms to divert fists, and slapped each other's forearms to knock away punches. They didn't move their feet up. Instead of stepping, they slid their legs into proper positions, tapping their feet together and moving them apart as they tried to get the timing right to throw a kick. Figures I can't surprise you. Ding. Naruto was punched in the face and knocked off his feet, onto his butt when his phone told him he got a text from his jacket. Naruto took the punch well, rubbing his face and getting back up. Keep focused. Ryukyu told him, and Naruto waved a hand in response. He knew that. Sorry Ryuko. Ryukyu, sorry. Naruto grabbed his phone and looked at the text. I found my successor, uncle. Seriously, what the hell did I miss? Naruto asked as he tilted his head in confusion, unsure of what to make of the text. As glad as he was that he didn't need to take the one-for-all quirk, he was surprised that his uncle had actually managed to find somebody so quickly. Is everything okay? Yeah. Let's continue until you need to leave if it's not too much trouble. Naruto put his fists up. She wiped the smile from her face, and did the same. Time to get a little more serious. Chapter 3 Busy Day. The successor for One for All. Naruto had to admit that he was curious about who it was. His uncle was very picky about choosing a successor for the power, very picky. Naruto could only list the number of people on a single finger that his uncle had believed worthy of getting to have the quirk. Of course, that one person being he himself, this list of people only including living people naturally. Naturally, Naruto was very interested in meeting this future one-for-all successor, the person that his uncle was going to be grooming into the next generation for the quirk. Surprising though, was the fact that Toshinori, All Might, had decided to keep who the successor was a secret for the last 2 months since finding him. He hadn't budged on the issue, no matter how much Naruto asked him. I don't want to overwhelm the boy with too much information. Right, the boy was apparently an All Might super fanboy, so learning that All Might had family would be a real shocker. Considering that Naruto knew a ton of personal information about his uncle, it was best to allow the boy to get used to being around his hero for a while. Adjusting him to the shock of everything too soon would be detrimental to his training. He has to be frustrated, finding a successor, but their body not being strong enough to handle one for all. Naruto thought to himself, walking down the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets. One for all was a powerful quirk, and the strength it granted the body was immense. It took a body that had extensive training to use the quirk. Most people die the second they tried to use the quirk. So selecting somebody to inherit it was a challenge in the first place. It took hard work and determination to become strong enough to handle the power. It was part of the reason why his uncle had been so eager to pass it on to him, because his body had been trained since he was a child for the purpose of becoming a hero. Then, when he turned 8, his uncle had started to train him for the purpose of becoming the one-for-all inheritor, though that plan backfired when he realized that Naruto didn't want the power. So he had to keep looking, while trying to convince him to take the quirk, for somebody that he believed had the potential for becoming a symbol for the people, somebody to bring peace to their hearts. Naruto's head jerked to the sound of the scream, and saw a small child was sitting in the middle of the road, her lower body frozen to the ground. The little girl couldn't be more than 4 or 5 years old, and a large portion of the road around her was frozen as well. The girl had awakened her quirk, and had no control over it, in the worst possible place. Naruto glanced at the street, and saw on one side of the road that hadn't frozen, the cars had all stopped for the girl. Sadly, on the frozen side, it wasn't easy for a truck to stop on a frozen road with no warning. Naruto, without even thinking, ran towards the little girl and used his quirk to transform into his one-tail form, and rushed towards her. The truck was trying its best to turn away from the girl, but it just wasn't working. Thankfully, Naruto's legs were much more stable on the ice, and he reached the girl first. Grabbing onto her, he pulled her out of the ice, and jumped out of the way of the truck. Move. Naruto's roar reached the drivers on the other end of the road, with many of the cars going in reverse and hauling backwards. They were able to avoid getting run over as the truck flipped onto its side and slammed into the side of a building. Naruto covered the girl's head and protected her from the loud sound of the building getting penetrated by the large truck. The little girl started crying, from either fear or relief, but she didn't let go of the fur protecting her. The driver is knocked out, but doesn't seem dead. The building isn't in great shape though. Naruto glanced over towards the truck, gently lowering the girl to the ground. Doesn't look like the truck is going to blow either. Naruto sighed in relief when it looked like everything was going to be okay. The girl refused to let go of him, so he had to give his best smile as he removed her hands from his body. Boom. The truck didn't explode, Naruto was right about that. People screamed though when something inside of the building, something hit by the truck, exploded instead. Naruto looked around for any hero that was available in the area to try and protect people. Naruto took a deep breath, before he stood up and started to storm towards the building, a large part of which was starting to collapse. Yuki. The mother of the girl he saved ran over to her daughter, tears in her eyes, and hugged the young girl. Naruto took charge. Everyone away from the building, and try calling for a hero. Don't approach the building at all costs. Naruto shouted with ferocity as he raced towards the building himself. Fire starting to break out all over it as the explosion kicked off a chain of events. Naruto reached the truck and pulled out the driver, who had minor and serious burns on his body. Cradling the man gently, Naruto jumped down nearly 30 feet from the building and lowered the man down. Don't move him, he's breathing, and has head injuries. With that told to everyone listening, Naruto got back up and started to run into the building. Buildings had people in them. Right away, Naruto saw close to 5 people in the first room he was in, 4 of them knocked out cold and injured, and 1 of them pinned underneath a bookshelf. Naruto tossed the bookshelf to the side, before he picked up the man. He moved to each of the people in the room, and stacked them on top of his right arm, carrying them towards the hole in the building and jumping over the truck. Naruto ran to the street, which had police cars starting to gather and set up blocks to prevent people from getting in the way of the rescue efforts. No heroes yet. So, placing all of the injured down on the ground, Naruto ran back into the building once more and avoided as many of the flames as he could. The explosion, Naruto guessed, seemed to have been some kind of radiator or a gas-powered heater. The flames were spreading very quickly, and they were burning with great heat. Naruto made his way into the next room, and didn't see anyone there. A chunk of flaming wood fell on top of his shoulder, and he knocked it off of him and continued on his path through the building. It's getting harder to breathe. Naruto took off his unzipped jacket, the zipper had exploded when he transformed, and wrapped the jacket around his mouth to filter the smoke as best he could. It wasn't making it easier to breathe, but it would provide some protection against losing to a loss of oxygen. Running upstairs, the building looked like it was about 3 stories tall or so from the outside. Naruto was thankful when he saw a strong jet of water shooting into a window from outside. It would seem either the firefighters had arrived, or a hero with a water quirk was helping from the outside. Help! He ran to the call for helping the fastest way he could, by busting through the wall keeping them apart. Naruto saw the room had several people in it like before, people that were being trapped where they were thanks to a massive hole in the middle of the floor, and spreading flames. I am here. Naruto jumped over the hole in the floor, landing on all 4s in front of the people. He skid over to them, shielding them from the flames with his body, his tail stopping the family from being crushed when part of the increasingly unstable building fell down. Naruto gave a smile as he did so, nodding to the family. It would seem that the building was a home for a family. Naruto saw 4 elderly, and 5 very young children, huddled together. Are any of you injured? Naruto questioned them as he leaned his head over them and took a chuck of the roof to his face. A large gash appearing over his face as he knocked it to the side, but he refused to show weakness. He just turned his face so that they couldn't see his injury. Naruto lowered his body for them. Thank you so much. The oldest of the elderly spoke, a man, to him as they started to gather on his back. 2 old folks on the front, 2 on the back, and the children being safeguarded between them. Naruto took his jacket from his face, and tossed it over the heads of the children. Naruto looked around. I saved 5 downstairs, is there anyone else here? Naruto asked as he tried to listen for anyone. Naruto jumped back when flames rushed up from the hole in the middle of the room, and water came through the window and started to put out some of the flames. Downstairs dash. I've already saved them, everyone lower your heads, I'm going to jump. Naruto ordered them as he glanced back at them. The ones in the back forced the children, crying children, to take cover. Thankfully, nobody was offering him too much trouble as he started to run at the window. Slamming his head against the small window, Naruto shattered the wall around it and jumped from the building. Landing roughly on the ground, Naruto skid on the ice as he landed on the street, coming to a halt with a sigh of relief. Everyone, back away from the building. Finally, the heroes. Naruto allowed the people he rescued to get off of his back, and looked over to see 2 heroes. One of them was putting out the fires on the bottom floor by opening up the fire hydrant nearby and controlling the water into the building. The second one shooting water out of his body into the windows on the upper floor. 2 heroes with water-related quirks. Manual, and backdraft. Thank you so much for saving my little girl. The mother from earlier had seen Naruto, and rushed over to thank him. Naruto was rather instantly the center of attention as he stood up straight and looked down at most of the crowd. There were a few people he could stare eye to eye with large bodies like he had at the moment. Naruto waved her off. No need to thank me, when I saw her in danger, my body just moved naturally. Anyway, now that the pros are here, Naruto's statement was met with surprise when he started to transform back. His body shrinking in size until everyone was able to see that he was only a teenager. I'm late for something important. Naruto spoke as he started to make his way through the crowd that had gathered around him. With the pros on the scene, he wasn't needed anymore, and he had saved everyone in the building. Also, considering he wasn't a pro hero, he could get into some trouble if he stayed too long and got questioned for it. Naruto hissed in pain. He had several burns across his torso, and he had a gash on his forehead. Naruto took his jacket from the children as he passed them, and put it on over his body. With the burns covered up, he would attend to them later. He pulled the hood on his jacket up, and increased the speed he was walking with to try and escape unnoticed. He wasn't able to leave without getting praise from the crowd he walked through though. Several hours later. So this is him. Naruto surprised his uncle by walking up behind him, though Naruto was surprised to see his uncle was standing with the next successor, in his true form. You're bleeding. Toshinori changed the subject when he saw dried blood on Naruto's face. He showed worry for his nephew as he tried to take a look at the injury, though Naruto waved him off. Did something happen? Toshinori asked as he insisted on looking at the cut. It was a nasty gash. Yeah, something fell on my head earlier. I'm fine though, so this is him. Naruto asked as he looked at a boy hauling garbage across the beach. Well, hauling was the wrong word, since the boy was struggling to move most of the stuff. The bigger stuff at least. He was pretty plain looking, though distinctive in his own right. Now really muscly in appearance, with light skin and freckles on his face, unruly green hair. The boy was sweating up a storm, his body only starting to show signs of attaining real muscle. He was trying his hardest though, his thin body being pushed to its limits to get stronger. Izuku Midoriya, he's quirkless right now, but in 8 months his body will be ready. Not going to say anything to that. Toshinori spoke quietly so that Izuku didn't hear them talking about him. Naruto shrugged. It's your choice, and I'll support you, and him. So what did you need me for? Naruto asked the older man. After so much secrecy, he was surprised at the contact at all. He was giving a sheet of paper. This is my 10-month plan for young Midoriya, tailor-made to his body. At the end of it, he should be able to handle my quirk without dying. I would like you to look. Toshinori was surprised when Naruto ripped it in half. 10 months, with 8 more to go, huh? That gives just enough time to get into UA, right? I'm going to go home, and rewrite this schedule. Let's make his body ready for one for all in 7 more months. That way, you can actually teach him how to use it. Naruto stated as he turned around and started to walk away. Naruto wasn't, well, he was an idiot, but he knew his uncle well. The man was trying to make this as close to the edge as possible. Then, he was going to let the boy discover how to use the quirk the day of the UA entrance exams. As funny as that would be, it would be better to give Midoriya a month to start to adjust to having the quirk. Naruto didn't expect he would be doing so much work today. Chapter 4 Holler. Several years previously. My body is a little sore, thankfully, the cool air is good for this. Naruto, age 11, rubbed his sore shoulders as he walked in the cold air. His jacket, a black and orange hoodie, wide open to let the air touch his sore muscles. His uncle had really put him through the ringer during training, but it was worth it if the results started to show soon. He could see his breath, it was so cold, and Naruto smiled to himself as he took a nice deep breath. Wah! Crap, I'm late. Well, that was ruined. Naruto saw a young man wearing a hoodie from his uncle's Silver Age costume design line, running towards the bridge. Naruto glanced over and saw a boy standing on the railing near the edge of the water, getting ready to no doubt use some quirk and jump over it. It's been raining, must have some kind of jumping quirk or a flight one. Naruto spoke under his breath. The running boy, seemingly 15 years old, stopped in the middle of the bridge. Huh? Wasn't the way to the station supposed to be this way? Actually, the station is the way you came from, make a right and you'll be there. Naruto came up to the older teen and pointed out where he was going to go. The only station near was about 5 blocks away, but the boy was running in the wrong direction. Thanks to the All Might hoodie, Naruto could tell the guy was going to be using the station to go and apply for one of the many hero academies. He seemed like the type to try for it. Splash! Oh my god! That kid is drowning. Damn it! Naruto unzipped his jacket and transformed as he ran towards the edge of the bridge. He could see the boy from earlier. The boy had surprisingly pink hair, easy to see in the water, trying to stay afloat. As his body became larger and more fur-covered, Naruto reached the edge of the bridge and jumped off into the water below. With enough distance to cross most of the way between them, Naruto landed right next to the boy, who seemed about his age. Naruto grabbed the boy and lifted him up on his shoulder, and prepared to swim against the current towards the land. It's a hero. I can stand. Naruto realized that despite the recent rain, with his current height of over 7 feet tall, he was able to stand up in the water. The water didn't even come up to his waist. The boy drowning must have just been unable to stand up because of the strong current. Don't worry, I'm here. Naruto said as he walked his way through the water towards the edge quicker than he would have swam it. Thanks for the directions, Fox-san. Not a problem, you go and become a hero. Naruto called out to the boy from earlier, who was running towards the station with a brighter smile on his face. Naruto stepped onto dry land, and jumped back up onto the bridge now that he had solid footing. The people on the bridge rushed towards them as Naruto placed the smaller boy on the ground, and took off his jacket, wringing the water out. That was amazing. What's your hero dash? Here you go, since you don't have fur, it's got to be freezing for you. Try not to jump in the water again. Naruto tossed his jacket onto the body of the pink-haired boy. The boy glanced up at Naruto, and he saw the large fox man smile down at him. Naruto locked eyes with him, and saw pink eyes that matched the hair. See ya. Now. I have to pick up green onions, beef, milk. Naruto started to mutter to himself as he walked away from the scene. He didn't pay attention when people were snapping pictures of him with their phone. Since a story like this was unlikely to make it into the news, it wasn't a big deal. A soft feminine voice spoke when Naruto left. He's dash. Present day. The one that saved me from drowning. A middle school girl, about to start high school during her next school year, shouted as she stood up at the table and pointed at the news her parents were watching. Her jaw was dropped when she saw the news showing the fire-covered building, and the fox man that saved her life jumping out of it with elderly people and young children on his back. He had a blood-covered face, and burns on his body, but she recognized the orange fox man as the same one that saved her own life. Her bushy pink hair came down to her shoulders, and spread out from her head, and her face had slimmed down from the chubbiness she had a few years back. She had a slim body, nearly no breasts, and wider hips as she wore her school uniform. Her eyes were covered by glasses that mostly hid her eyes, but she couldn't help but drop her jaw. No matter how much she searched, she was never able to find the hero that saved her life. Kazuho, please don't shout. Sorry Dad. She apologized and sat back down, watching the phone recording that the news was airing of the incident. She smiled to herself and ate her breakfast. She recognized one of the buildings in the recording. She knew what she was doing this afternoon. With Naruto. Now Naruto. I don't want to say this is a bad idea, but I don't believe Izuku will survive dash. Meh, he'll make it. Your plans were fine and all for preparing him, but all you are doing is taking him to his limits. You gave him way too much free time in the schedule, and days off. I just got rid of those silly things and replaced them with much more useful stuff. Naruto turned his nose up in pride at the redesigned schedule that would be used to train Izuku. The 10-month plan had turned into the 9-month plan. Izuku had been given 2 days off a week, 6 hours of sleep a day, and 3 hours of free time to be used for personal matters. Naruto's schedule replaced the 2 days off with a day of heavy workouts, and then a day spent recovering from the week with a visit to Recovery Girl and light workouts. Naruto had replaced the 3 hours of free time with stamina training, and the 6 hours of sleep had been cut down to 5 hours of sleep. With a short workout being expected before Izuku went to bed each night. Naruto also changed the diet to include vitamin chews, and protein shakes in it. Toshinori looked at his nephew with worry. He's not made of money, you're having him dash. Well then, I guess since he is your successor, you're going to be footing the bill for this stuff he needs. I've already contacted Recovery Girl, and so long as you pay her for her visits, she doesn't mind healing him when he breaks. Don't worry, with my plan he's going to be ready and still have a month to learn how to use One for All. Naruto raised a fist up into the air with a grin on his face. He was excited to be helping, though he had a list of things he had to do so he wouldn't meet with Izuku personally until a few more months into his training. Toshinori was pale and sweating. Even on paper, this training looked like hell. This will break him. Toshinori was honestly, worried about not just Izuku, but his own nephew. Was this the kind of hellish training Naruto put himself through? Was his nephew a masochist? Yeah, it's supposed to break him. That's why I asked Recovery Girl for help. She already knows about One for All, so it's fine. He's not glass, if you break him, he might come back stronger than before. Naruto mentioned as he slapped a hand down on the paper and pushed it back to Toshinori. Besides, you asked me for help, and the first time he uses One for All, he might break every bone in his body. This way, you have a month to let him get used to the quirk, and you can be a real teacher. Naruto verbally beat down his uncle. Naruto's own nightmare training came to mind, since Toshinori knew that he had screwed up so many times trying to train his nephew growing up. Personal experience showed him that he wasn't built for teaching, and Naruto learned how to teach by learning from experience what it was like to have a horrible teacher. Naruto turned on the TV. Now, everyone, let's move on to our next segment. Here, we have a new rookie hero for an interview. The hauler dash. I'm the crawler, not the hauler. Sorry, I'm the sliding hero, the crawler. I just graduated from a hero academy, so my hero name isn't well known yet. Ah, it's that guy, good for him. Naruto saw the teen from a few years back in a hero costume, looking good in his costume. Glad to see his dream worked out. What did they say his hero name was again? Naruto didn't catch the hero name. I think I heard them say the hauler. Toshinori hadn't been the most attention to the name either. Honestly though, back on topic, all of this One for All stuff was so instinctive. I'm not sure how much help I'll be in teaching him. Toshinori looked towards Naruto with a wiggling eyebrow. Naruto sighed. His uncle was such a bad teacher. I'll call Super Gramps tomorrow, and see if he'll train Izuku like he did with you. At least he was a good teacher. Naruto saw his uncle feel the weight under that comment. Naruto took the paper, and he grabbed his pen with a roll of his eyes, before he added a note to it. There, on Saturday he'll have 30 minutes of extra free time. Naruto relented and decided that this would get his uncle to stop pouting. It worked. The training is still a nightmare though. Toshinori stated, with Naruto shrugging. He grinned. Good, the trauma will help him grow. Anyway, If he's going to inherit one for all, don't baby him. You're putting a lot of weight on his shoulders, he has to be ready. I'm not saying be cruel and demanding, but you can't keep secrets from him. Naruto started to walk towards the door. He rubbed his shoulder when a small flash of pain got to him, the burns still hurting him. I'll pick up some pain relievers later, only 8 months until UA. I need to train harder. I heard Endeavor is sending his son to UA too, and if that bastard is anything like him, I refuse to lose. Naruto kept his thoughts to himself as he went to go out and train. The joys of being homeschooled by All Might, he had all of the time in the world to do things that he believed needed to be done. Naruto, you're a magnet for trouble. I know you don't like babying, but you're not a hero yet. You should enjoy your teenage years more, try and make some friends your own age, for me. Toshinori looked at Naruto when he opened the door to leave. Naruto looked back at him. Am I really allowed friends, when we're family? Naruto spoke dead seriously. Toshinori winced. Naruto's lack of friends was because he was afraid that somebody would learn who he was, and use Naruto against him. Now that Naruto was stronger and older, he could worry about this less, but he had forced Naruto to go through a friendless childhood. The only people Naruto could call friends, were the pro-heroes that Toshinori would ask to babysit Naruto when he was younger. Naruto had connections with pros because of it, but that couldn't replace having friends your own age. I'm sorry. Don't be. Now that I'm going to a hero school, I can finally make some of the friends I've wanted. Yeah, that sounds nice. Naruto smiled to himself. He wondered what kind of friends he would make. Chapter 5 Pink Fox. Everywhere Naruto went, people were talking about the new hero that was in the news. The large fox man that was spreading, and people were just so happening to pull up pictures that they had taken of him years previously when he would do something good for others in his one-tailed form. This wasn't the first time that Naruto had saved somebody, or done something heroic, but usually they were such small matters that the news never made a big deal out of it. Guess saving a family from a burning building, saving the truck driver, and saving a child from getting hit by a truck, at the same time was considered newsworthy. I wouldn't have this problem if my quirk wasn't so flashy, makes me wonder what life would be like if I had my dad's quirk. Naruto thought as he grinned to himself as he imagined himself teleporting all over the place. He shook his head though, since that style of fighting didn't fit his body well. He was built for brute force for the most part. The peanuts from Chiba were delicious. Considering the Foxman craze that was going around in his hometown, he decided to take a small break and travel to a different area of Japan. Sure, the few hours he was on the train sucked, but it was nice to not hear people raving about their new local vigilante. I'm not a vigilante. I was just doing the right thing, because nobody else was there to do it. Naruto muttered to himself bitterly. The labels the news were sticking to him were really annoying. Really, Foxman, they couldn't have come up with anything better than that? Did you hear about those strange instant villains that have been popping up lately? Instant villains. Naruto listened in as he walked behind 2 police officers that were doing patrols. They were on the lookout for any suspicious activity no doubt, so they could be the first on the scene and call a pro-hero if the situation became too serious for them to control. Knowing his luck, Naruto would happen across an instant villain today, or something similar to it. Yeah, apparently, there is some quirk-enhancing drug that's in distribution. It causes your quirk to get stronger, destroys the victim's mental state. Those who use it also have their tongues turn black. Black tongues, now that was an odd side effect. Then again, this was actually his first time hearing about instant villains and this new drug. He never needed to take a drug to increase his quirk's power, so that might be the reason for his ignorance. Not everyone had a flashy, heroic quirk. Quirk envy. As more impressive quirks appeared, those with weak or lacking quirks were come to resent those with impressive quirks. It was the source for many conflicts between people, and friendships were often ruined because of it. Trigger, isn't it? Not like we can be much use. If we see an instant villain, all we can do is call a pro-hero. Did you see that new hero on TV? Oh, you mean the hauler? Naruto asked with a grin on his face, butting into the conversation. He actually knew about this subject a little, since cops weren't likely to be talking about some vigilante in the streets. It was very common for the police to be talking about rookie heroes and unpopular heroes to make themselves feel better about their lack of authority. Pro heroes and police did similar things, but on different scales, and nowadays the police force was usually just around to keep things calm until a hero appeared. Becoming an officer was something of a joke to those who wanted to be heroes. It's rude to interrupt conversations. Police 1 spoke as he looked down at Naruto. Police 2 nodded, though Naruto rolled his eyes. No, Fox man, my son was really excited to see a fox Quirk in the news. He and my wife have the fox Quirk, so they've got fox heads instead of normal ones. It really made him happy to see somebody like him become a hero. Police 2 added with a smile. He rubbed the back of his head with red cheeks, a little embarrassed to admit that his son's hero was somebody that he just saw once on the news. I'm surprised Fox man dash. Naruto sighed and walked off in a hurry, not wanting to hear their praises. He would think that the police would have enough sense not to praise his actions in public like that. He had broken the law, so cops praising him as a hero was very inappropriate. He enjoyed the praise, but not when it came from people who should not be praising him for his illegal actions. Meow. Ah, you're super cute little kitty. Naruto smiled when he saw a cat rubbing up against his leg. The cat had 2 tails sticking where one should be. Naruto picked it up and cradled the tame cat in his arms. You even have a quirk. It's so rare to see animals with quirks. Naruto scratched the little cat behind the ears. It purred in his arms, eating peanuts from his paper bag as Naruto pet him. Wow, he expected something meowing at him to be some large creature, one of those instant villains. That seemed like his luck. It didn't matter what he was doing, but something bad was going to happen in his general area. He just had really bad situational luck, and while his luck was good for the lives he saved, it wasn't exactly great for his reputation. Ah, a massive bee? Wow, that thing is pretty big, and its stinger is shaped like a shot. Naruto thought to himself, looking at the bee that was talked about. It was 3 middle school girls jumping away from the bee. The bee flew around them, with one of the girls throwing a thick, white, fluid out of her hand at it. Acid? The girl had super pink skin, with her hair being about the same shade of pink. She was a few inches shorter than he himself was. Her appearance was far from human, other than being human in shape. She had a rather sturdy, attractive-looking body, but her body was fully pink. The whites of her eyes were pitch black, and her irises were bright yellow. She even had 2 jagged yellow horns coming from her super messy pink hair. She had a very athletic body actually, and with her unique appearance, sex appeal, and acid quirk Naruto could tell that she had future prospects as a hero. Her friends looked like your average middle school student, their normal appearance is far less noticeable compared to Pinky. It's just a bee, see, scared it away. Ah, it's flying away. Naruto stated as he looked towards the strange bee as it flew away towards the other side of the street. Naruto stopped looking at it, and he gave a startled sound when he saw his new kitty had eaten all of his peanuts. Of you little stinker, those were mine, meh. Naruto got over it as he tossed the empty bag into the trash. A loud roar. Naruto blinked when he heard a super loud roar come from across the street. He looked and saw a man wearing a nice business suit, screaming as his suit stretched and ripped. His body started to get larger and larger, sharp spikes growing out of his body as he grew from about 6 feet, to 7, to 14, to 27, and all the way to 40 feet tall. His skin turned sandy brown, hard in appearance, and his clothes had fully ripped off. This is your fault, little kitty. Naruto lifted his cat up and looked at it in the eyes, just needing something to blame. It's a villain. Police 1 ran away from the scene to go and find the nearest hero to take care of this mess. Police 2 ran towards the monster. Everyone evacuate the area. My partner has called a hero. Police 2 started to direct the civilians away from the monster villain. Just in time for the villain to punch a building, and shove his arm through it. The villain gave an angered roar as he swung his arm around. Naruto sighed and unzipped his jacket, placed his cat inside of it as he sat it to the side gently. He's getting naked. The pink girl watched as the boy her age started to strip his clothes off, though he just seemed to be taking off his jacket. She yelped when she finally noticed the giant villain that had appeared for real. She had been zoned out pretty heavily, and hadn't even noticed the monster roaring until she saw the flash of orange that was this teenager taking his clothes off. Then, she saw as he transformed. He became at least 20 feet tall as he stood on 2 legs, before he crouched down on all 4s with 3 tails behind him. He was only a fourth the size of the villain, and when she saw him rush into action, she didn't notice when her friends were evacuated from the area by the police officer. Foxman appeared again. Police too shouted in surprise, having not seen Naruto transform. "Hey asshole! You got some issues you need to work out, do it away from the city." Naruto shouted as he grabbed onto the arm of the villain, and slammed him into the ground. Naruto looked around, making sure that he didn't throw him into anyone, before he picked the villain up again and slammed him back into the middle of the street. Seriously, if he kept doing hero work like this, he was going to get a really bad reputation. People were going to only know him as a vigilante, instead of a person who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. His response was a roar. Then, he punched Naruto in the snout and knocked him off of his feet, smashing Naruto into the side of a building. Part of the building collapsing on top of his head, with Naruto grunting as his recent wound was reopened by it. Naruto saw rubble fall down towards the ground next to him, and saw it was going towards the pink girl from earlier. He was going to save her, but she saved herself surprisingly. She took off her shoes really quickly, and skated out of the way by releasing acid from her feet. "Don't worry Foxman, you can do it. My name isn't Foxman Pinky." Naruto got up and rushed towards the villain, grabbing his arms and pulled him away from the buildings, into the middle of the road. Naruto was punched in the face by a spiked fist for his efforts, and Naruto returned by punching the man in his armored stomach. "Damn, those spikes hurt." Naruto looked at his bleeding fist, having been torn up by the many spikes that were sticking out all over his body. Explaining this to his uncle was going to suck, and the pain of having his flesh torn apart was pretty damn nasty too. Naruto was thrown to the ground. The pink girl from earlier grabbed onto his fur on his face, and when he got back up, she was pulled along for the ride. She climbed up so that she was sitting on his snout, between his eyes. "Looks like he's covered in a lot of spikes and armor. Let me help you out." The girl was breaking out into a sweat. She was clearly extremely frightened by the situation she was in, but was still putting forth effort. Naruto jumped back when the villain tried punching him, with the girl being thrown off of him. He grabbed her out of the air, holding her by the entirety of her legs, before he put her on top of his head, letting her ride him. Fine, her acid would be useful. His face is the most heavily armored, think you can throw acid at his jaw? Naruto asked her as he nimbly avoided getting punched by the rampaging villain. The villain was mindlessly trying to attack everything around him. The girl held on to Naruto for dear life. She didn't think this through very well when she grabbed onto the large fox man. "Gonna be sick. Not on my head you aren't. Can you cover his chin in acid or not?" Naruto roared at her as he ducked under a kick. She was not throwing up on his head. He glanced up at her, and saw her giving a thumbs up. Seeing that, Naruto stood up at his full height again and rushed at the villain. Naruto transformed. He gained a four-tail, and with it his body grew even larger than before. Now standing at 25 feet tall, he slammed his body into the villain. With more strength, ignoring the spikes stabbing him with as much willpower as he could manage, he gave the girl the chance she had. She started to throw ball after ball or acid at the villain. She had to throw close to 15 balls of acid at the villain to cover his chin. The villain didn't make it easy for them, as he struggled against Naruto the entire time his chin armor was melted off. Done. Good. Now, Texas Smash. Naruto screamed as he slammed his fist into the chin of the villain, knocking him close to 150 feet down the road. When he hit the ground and rolled, his body started to heavily shrink the second he was knocked out cold. Naruto started to shrink down as well, losing his four-tailed form and shrinking down to his one-tailed form with the pink girl holding onto his shoulders with her legs. The difference in their body sizes now drastically smaller. Naruto looked at his wounds, before he grunted in pain and got down on all fours, with the girl adjusting herself so that she was sitting up properly. They needed to escape before more police and heroes showed up. So, grabbing his jacket. His new kitty had ran away. He ran for it. Minus 15 minutes later. Why? That was so scary. Naruto stood in an alley as the girl riding him collapsed to her knees and started to sob. The bravery she showed earlier gone now as she was out of danger. Naruto transformed back to his normal form. Naruto winced as he used his jacket to stop the bleeding in his chest and fist. Naruto. Naruto stated. The girl continued to cry for a few, about 20, more seconds. She wiped her eyes and face, both were covered by tears, and looked at him. Huh. I'm Naruto, since you saw me transform, you know my real looks now. You were really heroic back there helping me, this hurts. Naruto hissed in pain when he looked at his wounds. Oh, they were not pleasant. I'm Mina. Mina Ashido, and thanks. I'm going to be trying out for UA when they hold their tests. That was so scary, but it was kind of exciting. You're Foxman from the news. Mina introduced herself as well. She would stand up and help him, but her legs were still too shaky. She wasn't sure that she could stand up right now by her own power. Who knew that doing hero stuff was so terrifying? Foxman is a stupid name. I'm going to UA next year too. By the way, you're not hurt, are you? Naruto questioned her. She showed off some burns on her hands, before she shook her head. The burns were so tiny that they wouldn't be a problem for her. If I overuse my quirk, I can hurt myself. I had to make a lot of acid to melt those spikes. I'm okay though. Are you okay? Mina looked at his wounds as she spoke. She crawled, damn legs not working, and saw his jacket quickly soaking with blood. He nodded. I'm fine, this much won't kill me. Fuck. Naruto shouted when he ripped a small spike out of his shoulder. Great, he was bleeding out even faster than before. Naruto got his phone from his pocket and tossed it to Mina. The code is 8008, there is a contact named Sir Asshole, mind giving him a call? I might need some medical treatment. Naruto looked at his wounds. Yep, he needed treatment. Sure, maybe after, we can go to this sweet shop. I planned on going today with my friends, but they kind of ran off. Wanna be friends? Mina offered the hand of friendship to him. He looked at her hand. He didn't shake it. My hands are dripping with blood, but sure. Just because he couldn't shake her hand, didn't mean he was turning her down. He just so happened to be covered in his own red juices. Not a pleasant handshake. Chapter 6 Bad Habits. Well, I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong. Toshinori, in his true form, spoke as he looked at the back of his nephew. Izuka was showing far more results just 5 weeks into Naruto's redone training schedule, but the boy had already puked about 15 times already, and collapsed about 4 times. All stuff that had been planned out in the schedule, and the visits to Recovery Girl were helping his muscles heal back stronger much quicker than letting it happen naturally. The boy wasn't anywhere near close to ready to inherit One for All, but with the rate of progress he was showing, he would actually be ready for it within a month of the exams for UA at this point. It really made him appreciate the fact that his nephew was such a training freak, since this was speeding up the process for Izuka's growth, and it would allow him to rest easy knowing he had his nephew supporting him and pointing out areas where he could improve his teaching. Now, Toshinori was a big man to admit when he was wrong. Naruto didn't hear a word he said though. Naruto had headphones on and a glare on his face as he punched a punching bag in his room, a bag that wasn't filled with sand like a normal bag. No, Naruto's punching bag was made of pure iron, hanging from a thick and heavy chain. There was only about an inch of Seiyushin between Naruto's fist and the iron inside, and Naruto had his fists wrapped up in bandages as he trained. Unlike with the burning building, Naruto had been unable to hide his injuries from fighting the instant villain, considering he had multiple stab wounds. Wounds that had fully healed thanks to a few visits to Recovery Girl, though she had requested that Naruto take it easier on his training for a few weeks to compensate for the regular stress he put himself through. Naruto didn't listen. I hurt my fist punching that villain. I need to make my fists stronger to reduce the damage I take from attacking hard bodies. Naruto thought to himself, not paying attention to anything but the iron he was punching. The bandages on his fists were blood-stained already, but he kept punching the iron bag with as much strength as he could muster with each punch. The fact that he had trouble with a rampaging villain had showed him areas his body was lacking in, and he just wouldn't allow that to stand. He had to increase the power of his punches more, and strengthen the skin, muscles, and bones in his fists so that he could punch as hard as he wanted without breaking them. Ow, ow. Naruto gave winces as he stopped punching the bag for a second. Naruto added another layer of bandages to his fists, before he started to train again, sweat dripping from his body as he returned to his own training. Toshinori smiled. You really have more raw determination to improve yourself than anyone I know. Your father would have been very proud of you. I know I am, and it really makes me wish you would have accepted One for All. Toshinori could only imagine himself watching as Naruto used One for All with pride, seeing his young man take the world by storm and become a newer, greater symbol for peace. Yet, seeing Naruto smash through his limits with raw determination, guts, and an ironclad willpower would be fine too. Ding! Raw! Naruto roared as he started to unleash a new shower of blows onto his punching bag. Toshinori stood up straight and left Naruto's room to go and answer the door. No doubt it was another hero coming to ask him to help them with something. Possibly it was going to be a UA teacher, since he would be joining that teaching staff soon enough. Either way, he was going to go and see who was ringing his doorbell, seeing as he wasn't expecting any visitors, and Naruto didn't tell him that he invited anyone. He enjoyed his small moment to contemplate the mystery person at the door, before he reached it and opened it up. There was a girl he never saw before. No, he saw her riding on top of Naruto's head in the news story covering the instant villain incident. The girl saw him and smiled, waving her hand happily at him with a wide grin that showed off her absolutely flawless smile. Her pink skin and black eyes making the white of her smile just pop out all the more. Hello. Hello, is Naruto home? Sorry for coming unannounced, I'm Mina Ashido, a friend of his. Mina bowed to Toshinori, not recognizing him as the hero All Might. He wasn't exactly eager to tell her, so he just humbly stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. There was really nothing in the house, outside of the stuff in his room, that would really inform her of his secret. It was nice Naruto had a friend, which surprised him. Come on in, I'm Naruto's uncle Toshinori Yagi. I'm sure he'll be happy to see you. Can I get you anything to drink? We have cool tea in the fridge, and fresh milk. Toshinori led the girl into the living room. A small farm he saved had given him several fresh jugs of the stuff, so they had more than enough fresh milk to go around. Actually, if he was being honest, he was starting to get sick of the stuff. She smiled. Milk would be awesome, but I don't want to impose. Any friend of Naruto's is welcome to impose here. Toshinori took a glass from the counter and poured her the milk. Coming back into the living room, the two rooms were connected, only separated by a counter. He placed the drink on the coffee table. She picked it up and smiled as she chugged down half of the glass with a very happy sigh. Toshinori pointed to his face, and got her attention on the milk mustache that she had given herself. So, what brings you here? Naruto didn't tell me you were coming. Toshinori asked when she was finished licking her mustache away. Her had to admit, as happy as he was Naruto had a friend, having somebody coming over to the house randomly could prove, a little worrying for his secret identity as All Might, and the secret behind his appearance. She looked away from his gaze for a few seconds. Well, even though we became friends over a month ago, me and Naruto really haven't hung out, so I wanted to see if wanted to have fun. Mina didn't mention that she got the address when she used Naruto's phone to call Sir Asshole, and when they were riding in the car to drop them both off at their homes, she memorized his address. She didn't want to come off as creepy, though she didn't purposely try and memorize his address or anything. Is he here? Mina asked as she looked around for any sign that Naruto was in the building. She was surprised he didn't answer the door. Toshinori pointed to the door with orange trim around the door. His room is right there, but he's working out. You're welcome to interrupt him, this could be a good chance for him to take a break. Toshinori smiled at her gently, and looked at Naruto's room dead seriously. Naruto needed to take a break, maybe a friend visiting would get him to stop. Thank you. Mina hopped up onto her feet in the most peppy way possible, before she walked with a skip in her step towards Naruto's room. She politely knocked on the door, before she didn't wait for any response before she opened the door and walked in. Wow, didn't expect this. Mina looked at the type of room that Naruto had and was a little surprised. She expected something different. Naruto's room had some of the basics she would expect: a TV, a computer, a bookshelf, and a bed. His bed looked super comfy. The stuff all looked really nice, with his bookshelf being mostly filled with books on martial arts, training, quirks, and the rest of it being filled with different manga. Above his bed though, she saw 2 hero costumes hanging above it in glass cases. She saw a male costume, a bright yellow hero suit with black markings going around it, that formed lightning bolts that pointed towards the Japanese kanji for Thunder God in the middle of the chest. It had a utility belt that was carrying several daggers with markings on them, and nailed to the wall above the glass case was a helmet with a black visor to keep an identity concealed. It was the costume of the X-No. 2 hero, Thunder God. Then she saw the next one, a woman's costume, though she didn't recognize any hero that wore that costume. It was a skin-tight black jacket with a red strip going down the front, and a red turtleneck latex suit that went underneath the jacket. Followed up with black pants made of what looked like a stretchy material for those with growth quirks. There was a white mask that looked like it would cover the top half of somebody's face, and black arm warmers. She honestly didn't know what hero that costume belonged to. Wow, that punching bag looks really heavy. Mina shook her head, getting her fill of his room. She noticed that he had a small bonsai tree sitting on his window, but decided to save that for later as she slapped him on the back. Eep! Mina yelped when Naruto jerked around and pulled his fist back to punch her in the face. She had heard him let out his own startled noise, before he stopped his fist and grabbed his heart. He took his headphones off. God, Mina, you scared the shit out of me. Mina! What the hell, why are you here? Naruto's eyes, shocked, opened as wide as they could go as he jumped back from the girl. He didn't know that she knew where he lived. In all of the phone calls and texts that they had shared, he had never mentioned where he lived to her before. Not that he wasn't pleased to see her at his house, but it was pretty creepy that she knew where he lived. Oh, you saw Sir Asshole drop me off that day, but still, what are you doing here? Naruto asked the girl as she calmed down. She had nearly gotten punched. She carefully jumped on his bed and kept her skirt from flipping up, didn't want to flash him her panties, and she leaned down and grinned at him comfortably. Your uncle let me in, not happy to see me? Mina asked, and Naruto rubbed the back of his head. He was happy. Well, I mean, I'm happy you're here, but why are you here? Naruto continued as she jumped up and started to dance with her arms and waist. Deciding to go with it, he did his own lazy dance moves. Here to dance. Naruto tried to guess. She shrugged. We can, I'm just here to hang with you. Want to go to the mall with me, or even play video games here? Honestly, I just wanna hang with my buddy, doesn't matter what we do. As long as you take a shower first. Mina mentioned as she covered her nose with one hand, yet she never stopped dancing as she did. Naruto rolled his eyes and grabbed a change of clothes, and his jacket, from his bed. You stink, and are your fists bleeding? Mina asked him, as she looked at the punching bag. She saw blood on the bandages and the punching bag. Yeah, I'm fine. I get injured a lot when I train, so this much is nothing. Make yourself at home, I guess. Naruto didn't know what to say when a friend was in his room. This was the first time he ever had a friend at his house in the first place. He opened the window to let the post-training smell out of the room for her. He saw her pull her fist back and take a swing at his punching bag. Her fist hit it, and while the punching bag moved a little, Mina yelped and landed on his bed when she jumped back, holding her hurting fist. Ow. Ow ow ow. What the hell was in his punching bag? They weren't supposed to hurt so badly when you punched them. She felt like she had straight up punched a metal wall, and she was thankful she had not decided to punch the bag with all her strength. She might have broken her hand if she had done that, though it explained why Naruto's knuckles were bleeding so much. Naruto's uncle was right. Naruto needed to take a break from training, if this was how he trained. She was so going to take him to the mall to find him a hobby. Chapter 7, New Place Same Luck. If I strap these to my body, and swim through a river, I could get a serious cardio workout. Naruto's thoughts were solely on training as he looked through them all, seeing a weighted vest, weighted anklets, and weighted wristbands on sale for a decent price. On their own, each of them were kind of worthless to somebody who had trained their body well, but combined and used in an interesting way could make for a surprisingly good training method. Naruto looked through the window selling them. The mall they were inside of contained dozens and dozens of different stores, and 3 floors of places to visit. After a short train ride, and 10 minutes of walking, they had arrived at the place where teenagers could be easily found. Nope. Mina grabbed Naruto by the ear and started to pull him away from the store that sold the workout equipment. She saw the look that he had been showing the gear, and since she was trying to pull him away from training, it wouldn't do to let him buy stuff that would just increase his training even more. Okay. Naruto muttered as she dragged him to a different store. Clothing store. I do this with my girlfriends all the time, and you're wearing the exact same outfit when we met. I think you need a update. Mina stated to Naruto as she poked his jacket, the same style of jacket that he had been wearing when they met. Naruto looked down at his clothes, not seeing what was wrong with them. By the time that he had looked, she had already dragged him into the men's section. You're like super well built, so something with short sleeves or no sleeves is perfect. Also, maybe getting something a size too small would look great. Mina grabbed a shirt that wouldn't naturally fit Naruto and held it up to him. It was pink. That is very feminine. Naruto pointed out as she pushed the shirt into his arms. She pushed black baggy shorts into his arms with them, before she started to really have fun with it as she pulled him across the entire clothing shop. The clothes in his arms piled up higher and higher, until he couldn't even see what was being added anymore. Anyway, my Quirk usually destroys whatever clothes I wear, so I wear jackets because they are easy to take off, and my pants are made from materials that stretch for those with quirks that make them bigger. Naruto lifted up the clothes higher up so that he could look at her. His choice of clothing wasn't just a preference, it was something that served a practical purpose in his life. She stopped. Yeah, and my quirk makes acid come from my body. Do you know how many pairs of shoes I've melted? It's a lot. Clothes don't have to be practical. Mina gave him a pat on the head for being so simple-minded about this. He, a boy, just wouldn't understand why him wearing good clothes would reflect upon her as his friend. His image was her image, and the opposite was true. Anyway, look, see, you're on shirts now. Mina held up a shirt that had a stylish image of him in his one-tail form on the front, arms crossed in an action pose. They made t-shirts of him? When? I'm on shirts. Naruto asked with surprise as he looked at the shirt. He whispered it mostly to himself, since he was honestly surprised. Sure, he had saved a few lives in the past few months, but he didn't think he had gained any real fame for it. He wasn't even being talked about a bunch on the news anymore, since he hadn't done anything heroic in like 5 weeks. The news had already moved on to the popular heroes who were constantly doing hero work, so why would there already be merch for him, when there shouldn't be a demand for it? Mina nodded and put it on the growing pile. Yeah dude, you're like super popular with little kids, and since nobody knows what your normal face looks like, it adds to your charm, and your foxy fox form looks really cool. You're pretty muscular on your own, but your fox form is almost all might levels of buff. A lot of my friends at school think you're super hot. Mina had seen a ton of her friends put pictures they printed from newspapers and the internet in their lockers at school, and there were a lot of kids she passed on the road that would be playing hero and villain. It wasn't surprising to see children getting their parents to buy foxtails and fox masks, and parading around as Foxman from TV. Naruto furrowed his brow. I didn't do it to become famous. Then why are you becoming a hero? Mina asked when she heard that grumble from him. She pulled him into the changing room, she didn't go in it with him, and closed the door behind him. Most people only becomes heroes to be famous and rich and stuff, right? She asked him through the door. Naruto frowned. I just want to use my power to help people, but I can't do that without becoming a hero. So I need to be stronger, become a hero, and become well known enough, so that when people see me, they feel safe. Naruto changed into the first outfit she showed him, and opened the door to show her. She gave him 2 thumbs up. Looked good. That's like really cool. I mean, I want to help people, but for me being a hero is just something I'm just suited for. Everyone's always told me that because of my looks, my quirk, and my personality that I was suited for it. Really dorky, right? Mina had always thought her own reasons for wanting to be a hero were pretty lame. She felt even more lame when compared to those with selfless reasons. She didn't see it, but Naruto shook his head. In this society, that reason is fine too. Honestly, reasons don't matter as long as we're helping people. Naruto didn't speak his thoughts, but he did smile as he changed into the next outfit. This one has a jacket. Naruto liked that, he really did. Jackets were sort of his style, especially orange or black jackets. They really fit his color scheme well, considering he turned into an orange fox. Mina saw him when he opened the door. Yep, I'm going to try on some stuff too, anything you don't like, just put back where I got it from. -1 hour later. So, what was it like, running into a burning building to save people? Mina liked her ice cream as they sat on a bench in the food court. She had been meaning to ask about it for a while, since Naruto had already done heroic stuff. She had helped him stop a villain, but he had done more stuff in the past that she didn't have experience in. Was it scary? Of course it was scary, it was a burning building, and it could collapse or explode at any moment. I was scared the entire time I was inside of there. Naruto admitted with a grin. Somehow, she didn't believe him. Bullcrap. Mina pointed her fingers at him like guns. She didn't buy that for a second. She had seen the news, and he didn't look afraid when he ran into the building, or when he had jumped out of it. He had seemed like the definition of bravery to her. You were totally fearless, admit it. Mina teased him, and he shook his head. He wasn't. I wasn't fearless, I was scared that I wouldn't be able to save everyone. If people see the person saving them is scared, then they're going to be even more scared. My body just moved on its own, and I refused to show them I was afraid. Because this Naruto pushed his fingers up against his cheeks, and spread his lips into a smile. Is the most heroic thing you can do as a hero. Sure, with my body I can save their lives, but with my smile, I'll save their hearts. Naruto slapped his heart a few times to show her what he meant. Mina thought on it. Sounds to me like he wasn't afraid of getting hurt, he was afraid of others getting hurt. That is, Mina stopped and smiled at Naruto, before she pointed to him. Really cool. Yeah, All Might is always smiling too. You kind of remind me of him, you could be his son or nephew or something. Man, this gets me really pumped up for you. Mina leaned back in her chair and shouted out her last sentence. She smiled widely, pushing her fingers against her cheeks, copying Naruto. I'm stealing that, I'm going to be a hero who smiles too. Mina stuck her tongue out at Naruto. He nodded and grinned back. He would like that. That dash. Oh, let's go singing. I bet you'll be really good at it. Mina finished off her snack and grabbed onto him, pulling him to his feet as he carried their clothes in one arm, bags dangling from it. She held onto his sleeve as she pulled him, not giving him much of a chance to object to her. This is going to be fun. Naruto just smiled and nodded. Yeah, this was kind of fun. Later. Oh my god, that was awesome, I didn't know my voice could go that high, really enjoying your drink, huh? Mina used a towel to wipe the sweat from her forehead. She had been breakdancing while she had been singing, seeing as she loved both of them. You know, I kind of expected a villain to show up today. Glad to see I was dash. Boom. Naruto looked at her with narrowed eyes for her comment seeming to summon forth a villain from somewhere. Naruto palmed his face, before he stood up and zipped down his jacket. He tossed it on her, before he transformed into his one-tailed form. Wear that, and use the hoodie to cover up your hair and horns. Since this is a mall, I'm sure there are some heroes here. We need to help evacuate people. Naruto told he as he left the small room they were in. She pulled his jacket on over her clothes, and flipped the hoodie so that her features were mostly covered. Well, the pink skin on her arms and legs were hard to hide, but with her head hidden, she wouldn't be recognized at a single glance. She followed after him quickly as they ran to the edge of the second floor, looking down on the first floor. Mina pointed. That's the baddie, looks like he's got a hostage. Mina shouted, and Naruto looked at the situation she pointed at. There was a guy wearing a cliché ski mask, most likely to hit his face, and his right arm was a cannon. It would seem his quirk was related to his arm being a cannon, because there was smoke coming out of the end of his cannon arm. He had it pointed up at the ceiling, before he pointed it at a man next to him. Nobody stop me, or he gets it. Mina. You a good shot? Naruto asked as he looked at a trash can. He took the trash bag out of the can, before he tied it up and placed it to the side. Gesturing to the can, she nodded and hopped so that she was inside of it. Naruto lifted up the can itself, her inside of it, before he looked down at the first floor and aimed carefully. Ready? Naruto asked as he closed an eye. Mina grinned. Ready. He threw her, at a high speed, right towards the villain. The villain saw the trash can coming, since it was a straight shot, and moved his aim to fire at the can. Naruto started to run towards the end of the balcony, while Mina jumped out of the trash can just as the villain fired his arm. The bin was destroyed by the shot completely, and as Mina rolled across the ground she lobbed a shot of acid at his pants. His belt and the hem of his pants melted in a second, and like magic his pants dropped to his knees. Out of instinct, the villain pulled his pants up. Mina stuck her tongue out at him, smiling widely. You little bit dash. Naruto came flying in while he was distracted, and kicked him in the chest, knocking him through a shop window and into a wall inside of the store. The man let out a harsh breath as he was knocked out cold. He didn't see what hit him, but everyone around him did as the villain was taken down rather quickly. Naruto looked at the bags that were hanging off of his tail, before Mina jumped onto his shoulder. Thought we were evacuating people? Mina questioned him as he started to run, the items that they paid for hanging from his tail. He ran on all fours to the mall exit, since it would seem their mall day had been cut rather short. She teased him as she poked her face, and she pulled his hoodie down over her face, shifting so she was riding his back. Naruto snorted. That was before I saw a hostage. All things considered, I wouldn't mind hanging with you again. Naruto had fun today, and really wouldn't mind a repeat. Though, next time without a villain ruining things. Chapter 8 What is the difference? Spring was in the air. With the winter season coming and going, giving rise to warmer weather, Naruto couldn't help but enjoy it as he actually took a break from training of his own free will. He wore the pink shirt that Mina had gotten him, though it was too small for him now, stretching to contain his body. Combined with the baggy black pants he wore, it was actually a pretty good combination. The sleeves of the shirt had long since ripped off of his arms, and because of his training the pants had rips near the knees, but Mina had told him that it looked good, so the rips and tears were fine. Hey! Hey Mina! Naruto waved with a grin. She had invited him to come to the part, so he had decided to take a break from training to come. She was wearing new clothes too, a purple shirt that had acid on the front, which extremely short hot pants. Thigh-high socks, colored like one would see from the 70s, and leading into leather-heeled shoes. She ran over towards Naruto and smiled brightly at him, happy to see him, and not in his usual jacket and pants combo. The fact he wore clothes she picked out for him was more awesome, and he had a bad boy look going with the rips that complemented her 70s punk girl look. Looking good. Mina pointed finger guns at him as she hopped back and forth, her entire body as animated as her personality was. And would you look at that, you're only a little hurt today. Mina pointed at the bandages on Naruto's forehead, and the bandages wrapped around his right forearm. He didn't seem super injured, and since the bandages weren't red with blood, they didn't seem like they happened today before he came to the part either. Naruto glanced away from her. This had happened, the day previously, when he trained with Ryukyu again, since she had a day off and sent him a message saying she wanted to keep her skills fresh for combat. She had gotten a little too intense in their training, and it ended up with the both of them hurting each other a little more than intended. She had bitten his arm and scratched his head, and he gave her a pretty nasty bruise on her back. Yeah. I'm not getting hurt that much. Naruto denied her. She took her spot next to him and wrapped an arm around his, leading him down the stone pathway through the park. Wild deer all around them, with people feeding the tame, yet still wild, deer who just allowed it. Mina poked him in the side with her free arm, knowing that he was always getting hurt one way or another. Usually because he had the bad habit of pushing himself too hard. Either way, she took the lead and pulled him along, deciding the course they would take for the day. They hadn't gotten to hang out all week, since her school was really pushing them to study for their exams. None of that mattered though. Hey, this summer, before the UA tests happen, we need to go to the beach. I can invite some of my friends, and you can invite some of. Mina's pink cheeks darkened when she realized that Naruto didn't have friends other than her. She quickly let go of Naruto and waved her arms around in apology. So sorry, forgot your situation. I'm sure my friends will love you. I'm friends with this funny guy, Kirishima, he's pretty, he's been kind of down lately. Mina said as she grabbed back onto Naruto's arm. She wasn't super close to some of her friends, but she still wanted them to meet Naruto and have fun at the beach together, all of them. She had barely passed her exams with scores good enough to allow her to apply for UA, and she really wanted to celebrate. Going to the beach, bursting a watermelon, lighting fireworks at night, and even going fishing were all stuff that sounded like a great way to kick off the summer. Naruto nodded. I know, just the beach. His brain thought on finally checking up on Izuku's training in person. He had yet to meet the boy in person. See him in person was one thing, but since making the new training schedule, he had never actually checked up on Izuku. He heard about the training from his uncle, and how Izuku had collapsed a great number of times when the stress got too great and broke his body. Only for a visit to Recovery Girl to put him right back on track. Even months into Naruto's training hell, the boy had yet to quit. It was surprising, and it showed the teen's determination to inherit One for All from All Might. Mina nodded excitedly. Awesome, this is the perfect to show off my swimsuit. I've waited months for the chance to wear it. Mina pumped her fist high into the air. She nearly punched Naruto in the face when she did it, but he leaned back and dodged in time to avoid it. He had long since gotten used to how much she loved moving her body around, and avoiding her flailing limbs. Wait, this isn't going to turn into a situation where a villain shows up at the beach, and it cuts out time together short like at the mall. Mina suspiciously pointed at Naruto. They hadn't had a villain show up and ruin their hangouts in a while, and a beach trip was the perfect time for their fun times to be ruined. Naruto shrugged. I mean, I doubt any villain would show up at this beach, nobody goes there anymore for relaxation. Naruto seriously doubted any villains would have a reason to show up. It wasn't like everywhere he went was a good place for bad guys. The middle of a street, great place for a villain to make a debut. Inside of a crowded mall, amazing location for a villain to make his mark in the news. This time, it was a secluded location that was being used as a garbage dump for years, and though it looked a lot cleaner now, it had no villain value. Mina smiled widely, eyes sparkling when she realized this was a great chance for her. Something touched her butt. Oh, it's a deer. Mina had turned her head and saw a deer was nibbling at the cut-off portion of her shorts, and she stepped forward out of its reach. She reached out and rubbed the side of its neck. Naruto, touch this deer, it's really relaxing and peace dash. Like Icarus, I swore to the sun. A man with white wings jumped off of tree he had climbed, stripping absolutely naked from his coat, his nude body on complete display as his wings flapped, and he took off into the sky. Mina's skin became a lighter pink when she became her version of more pale, while Naruto looked up at the man, his jaw dropping in surprise when he saw sudden nudity. What the hell? Wanna go to my place and play video games, before this gets weirder? Naruto offered as he turned around, Mina nodding and turning around with him as the two of them smartly decided this was too much for either of them. She didn't see as the man fell from the sky, behind them and hit the ground, before he got up and went back towards the tree to do it again. They decided that seeing what they saw was enough, and they were better off enjoying today indoors, if this was the alternative. Naruto's house. Hey Naruto, tomorrow, do you mind? You have company. Young Mina, nice to see you. Toshinori walked into Naruto's room with a stack of papers in his hands, before he hid them behind his back when he saw Naruto wasn't alone. He had almost entered Naruto's room, and transformed into his muscle form to make a joke, but thankfully he had seen the girl before he went through with it. I have some paperwork I need to drop off at the office, do you mind dropping it off for me tomorrow? Toshinori asked Naruto as he gave a quick show of the paperwork. Naruto nodded. Hey Yagi-san. Sorry for being here, but there was a sicko in the park showing, we decided video games was the mindless activity we needed. Mina shivered when she remembered what she had seen. No. You need to start sucking at this game, Naruto. Mina shoved her feet into Naruto's side, laying on her back as she held the controller above her head. She continued to play as she tried to mess with Naruto, though it didn't work as Naruto mostly ignored her bare feet pushing against his side. Toshinori actually smiled at the display. Naruto transformed into his first form, before he tilted to the side, slowly. Mina noticed her feet were on something really soft and furry, really warm, and pushing against her legs. Timber. Naruto fell onto his side, the side that Mina was on. No. Mina was crushed underneath a soft and fluffy hell as his larger body pushed her down. She had dropped her controller, her hands and feet being the only things free from his body. Naruto continued to play the game, not completely uncontested. If she wanted to play that game, then so would he, only he was going to win it. Need something? Naruto asked as he put his controller down after winning. Sitting up, Mina took the deepest gasp of breath as she sat up. Dude, you would make a great bed. If it's not too much trouble, do you mind dropping these off tomorrow? Toshinori asked Naruto as he sat the documents down. Mina glanced in their direction curiously, while Naruto turned his body back, and looked towards them. They were All Might reports, basically reporting all of his hero work he did. His uncle needed him to be the one to drop them off at the police station, so that they could keep track of what he was doing as a hero. Since he didn't exactly have unlimited time in his All Might form, it wasn't like he could waste time that could be used being a hero, on police reports. It was already established that Toshinori was All Might's assistant at the office, and he was documented as Naruto's guardian by law. It wasn't odd for Naruto to be the one who would drop documents off for his uncle and by proxy All Might. I don't mind. Ah. Tomorrow is the day we are doing that thing, remember, we're seeing that movie. You know. Mina made wide gestured with her arms, ones that confused everyone other than her. Wanna go see a movie? There is a new alien movie I want to see, it comes out tomorrow. I forgot to ask you. Mina rubbed the back of her head, seeing Naruto's confusion, she realized she had yet to ask him. She had assumed that she already had, and had made plans according to that. Well, this was a way to ask. Toshinori looked at her. I'll take care of myself this time, you two have fun on your date. Toshinori was smiling brighter than Naruto had seen him smile in months. Well, other than when he realized Naruto had a keeper for a friend. Date? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Toshinori left the room. Yeah, weird, a boy and a girl going to the movies alone together is totally like a date. I didn't realize that. Well, it's not like we're going clothes shopping together. Mina was interrupted when Naruto spoke up. We've done that. I mean, we don't take romantic walks through scenic parks. We were doing that today. Mina was quiet for a moment as she thought about everything they did together. They hung out alone all the time, she was usually holding onto one of his arms and pulling him along whenever they hung out. They had gone to the mall, and he was in the habit of wearing clothes she picked out for him. She was always asking him to do things with her, usually just the two of them. She had a ton of fun with him, and when she saw her favorite movie series make a new movie, the first person she thought of seeing it with was Naruto. She and he even did some hero work together, several times actually, and their chemistry was through the roof. Even right now, she was pushing her feet up against his face, and he didn't seem the least bit bothered by her. Holy crap, how long have we even been dating? Mina jumped up and pointed between herself and Naruto. She tried to think about when it could have began, when she started to enjoy his company more than her other friends. Actually, you don't seem that surprised. Why aren't you surprised? I mean, if we're already doing everything couples do, then what does dating really change between us? Naruto asked her with a dull tone. They did everything couples did but kiss and that kind of stuff. Honestly, their relationship wouldn't really change if they did or didn't start to officially date. All that would happen was that they would show a little more romantic affection. Mina sat down. Dude, we're totally boyfriend and girlfriend. Actually, I think you're right, and I already think you're a total hottie, and love hanging with you. How about you? Mina grabbed her controller and started to play with Naruto again. She had taken on the same dull tone that he had, starting to realize that she was making way too big of a deal out of this. He did make a really good point after all. Duh, you're super cute, and if I didn't like being around you, this conversation wouldn't be happening. Guess we're official now. Naruto tilted his head to the side, and Mina nodded her head. Yep, Naru Mina is a thing. Mina spoke sagely, since as a couple, they needed a couple name. By the way, turn into your fox form. Mina told him as she reached out with one hand, and unzipped the jacket he had put back on. When he turned into it, she moved so that she was sitting between his legs, and relaxed back so that she was laying against his chest and stomach. Yep, knew it, you're an awesome chair. You're my boyfriend, so get used to doing whatever I tell you to do. Mina joked with a grin as she looked up at him. He rolled his eyes. How is that any different than what I'm already doing? That means you need to lose to me next round. Mina stuck her tongue out at him. She was getting sick of losing to him over and over, so she was going to abuse girlfriend power as much as possible. No. Damn. That's it for part 1. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.